Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We've been on the road for 5 weeks now, and we've travelled around northern Spain and the French Atlantic coast. We wanted to share with you some of the different kinds of park ups that we've used, whether it be an Aire, a campsite, or just a free park up. So we've been asked quite a lot over the last few weeks how we choose where we're going to stay overnight, because we have no plans, we've got no bookings, and actually in the morning we don't know where we're going to be at night.
You'll have seen from some of our previous videos that we have stayed predominantly on campsites on this trip, which is quite unusual for us.
Yeah, particularly on the French Atlantic coast, there was not many opportunities for us to stay in free park ups. A lot of the car parks must get inundated with the hundreds and thousands of motorhomes that are around. So we did stay on campsites.
Sometimes we thought about staying on airs, and we've stayed on some really nice airs, but quite often, particularly along the coastline, some of the airs are not particularly that appealing compared to really good value campsites that you can get at this time of the year, just at the start of the summer season.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the majority of the places that we stayed, which were campsites. We chose them using mainly the Axi card system. We've got the app on our phone. They have a discounted price for campers up until usually about the beginning of July. And we didn't pay more than €23 per night for any of those campsites. And we found some absolutely amazing little treasures.
The discount scheme does cover campsites of all standards, to
It
be
does.
fair, and you do get what you pay for. But with it being capped at €23 a night, you are staying at some really quite luxurious and really quite big and really quite not very us campsites.
Yeah, on the French Atlantic coast, right down below Royan, we had two very different types of stays. We stayed at Camping Albret, which we actually loved. It was the pitch that we chose was right by the beach, so it wasn't far to walk, and it was in a little wooded area, and it was quite bohemian, but the facilities were really not great. But we only paid €15 per night. And then the next campsite was €21 a night, and it was the complete opposite. It was all singing, all dancing, it had a pool, it had lots of children's facilities with basketball areas, and it was a really nice campsite, and actually we really enjoyed it.
One of the things we really like to do is actually get amongst the locals and get amongst the French and stay at municipal sites, which is something that's quite unique to the French culture. And municipal sites are run by the local communities, and they do tend to be a little bit more basic. They do tend to be a little bit more rustic, but we quite like the relaxed feel of them.
Yeah, we stayed on one at Noirmoutier, which is an island just above the Vendée, and it was, I think it was €15 a night, and it was amazing. We were the only English people there.
Which is quite a nice thing. So what we've tried to do in this video is, over the course of the last few days when we've stayed at places other than campsites, we've tried to give you a bit of an insight into the different types of accommodation that are out there and the good things about it and maybe the not so good things about it. One of the things that we're always confused at when travelling through France is the difference between an Aire and an Aire. Not all Aires are equal, and this is one example. When you are travelling on the motorways, you will see loads of signs for Aires, and they are fantastic because they are just motorway stop-offs. So they tend to be picnic areas with toilets and rubbish and parking facilities, but that's about it. Now, I'm led to believe that you can stay in them overnight, but some of the reports on the forums and some of the urban myths about crime in them and things like that is they're not the best place to stop. Truckers use them all the time. They are great for a stop off and a picnic, but please don't confuse them with what we would consider overnight Aires. Morning. So last night we stayed in an Aire. Now there are lots and lots of different classifications of Aires in France, and when we first started travelling we had no idea of the difference between them.
So last night we stayed in a municipal Aire. It's a paid Aire. It was €12 for the night. We're in a tiny little village in Brittany at the moment. It's run by the local community, and they provide the basic facilities that you need when travelling in a campervan. The great thing about most of the Aires is that you don't need to pre-book. You just turn up, and if there's spaces, you let yourself in. So here we had to pay €12. It was actually quite easy to work out because they did have it converted into English, which a lot of them don't. And then they gave us a code to go through the barrier, and that was it really. We found our space for the night.
Now Aires come in all shapes and sizes, and this is quite an unusual one. It's probably one of the biggest Aires we've stayed on, and it's unusual in the fact that it's got designated bays for parking. Normally most Aires are just like a car park, and you tend to get vans parked really close to you, whereas this one you get to choose your own space and you've got a little bit of space to spread out.
It's important to remember that most Aires are not a campsite, and the ethos is that you can't get anything out of the van. You're supposed to stay in the van and keep everything within there. But this Aire is a little bit different, and there aren't many around like that. So we have our own allocated space, and we could have got our tables and chairs out last night if we'd wanted to. It rained, so we didn't.
The facilities on most Aires are an absolute mystery to us, as we're not motorhome owners and we very rarely use them. They're traditionally called flop blurs, and they can have a charge where you sometimes have to buy tokens to use them, or sometimes like this one they're free, where they have a grey water dump, they have fresh water, and they have electricity and also a chemical toilet dump. We're not quite sure how they work because we never actually use them, but they are obviously essential if you're travelling around in a motorhome. Another kind of place we like to stay when we're in France is sort of unofficial park-ups. A prime example of that is tonight. We are in Caen and we're just about ready to get on the ferry in the morning, and we know that we need to be up and off early, and we know we need to be in striking distance of the port. So we're staying at a car park just outside a parked area in the city. It's something we found on Park for the Night, and it's a really valuable tool. Jackie does an amazing job at finding these places, but it's a place where overnight camping is tolerated, as long as you are sensible. So it's obviously quieting down here a bit now, and there's no one around, but we are still not spreading out. We're still staying within the van, and we're trying to be respectful of the local community. We don't like to use Park for the Night spots that are overlooked because we wouldn't want people camping in front of our house, whereas this is very secluded. We're not bothering anyone. It doesn't cost us anything. We always try and tidy up other people's rubbish if people leave stuff like that, and we leave the place better than when we found it. They are really ideal spots for keeping on a budget on trips, and we really like the flexibility that wild camping offers us. One of the issues we've found is that wild camping is really being clamped down on, particularly in the coastal areas, so we just could not find any wild camping spots up and down the coast. Either the car parks were restricted by height barriers, or secondly they were really clear signage to say that you can't stay there, and we always respect that. But in the middle of rural and central France, there are so many wild camping spots that you can use free of charge, but remember it's a sort of community facility, so we always try and look after them.
One of our go-to apps that we use when we want to find somewhere that's not a campsite is Park for the Night. It has its limitations. We have turned up at places that sounded really good on the app, and we thought it would be perfect for the night, and it's been little more than a dirt track lay-by and really busy with cars going past. But there are some absolute gems out there.
I think one of the things about Park for the Night is it's got really successful, and there is probably too much information on there. So one of the things that we tend to just do as a matter of course is look through, and we certainly don't stay anywhere where there aren't any pictures of the sites. We also don't stay anywhere where it says camping may be prohibited.
Yeah, because you know people don't want you there. I'm not going to stay somewhere where the locals don't particularly want you to be there. A lot of campers do, a lot of vans do, and you see motorhomes sort of rammed in some of these car parks.
One of the things that we've noticed over the last few years of owning a camper van is that free park ups for the night are getting less and less. I think it's because there are more vans out there, there's certainly more motorhomes out there, and the opportunities to take free accommodation are getting a little bit more limited.
I think post-COVID, a lot of people bought vans and they were just parking anywhere. There are a lot more vans out and about, and people have got fed up. The locals have got fed up. So we tried to stay somewhere. If it's rammed full of vans and we don't think that that's appropriate, we will just move on to the next place.
So finally, how did we actually get to this point 5 years into our van life ownership? And we were probably the most nervous campers when we first set out.
Yeah, I like safety in numbers. So the part for the nights that we do choose, tonight actually we're on our own. There's no one else around, but it's in a really lovely little French village. We're next to a little park area. It feels really safe, so I don't mind staying.
Deciding to move away from campsites is a big step, but we've stayed in our camper van for over 600 nights and we've never had any bad experiences. And despite urban myths, we haven't had the dreaded knock on the van door at 3 or 4 in the morning trying to move us on. So I think that is a little bit of an urban myth, but it does take a little bit of confidence, and at times we get out of the habit of it. Certainly, having stayed on campsites for a good few weeks, it was strange earlier on this week going back to wild camping.
One of the things that does frustrate us a little bit when we turn up at Park for the Nights is you sometimes find that the previous van lifers have left it in a real mess. There's lots of rubbish around, there's lots of toilet paper and wipes. As much as we can, we tend to clear that up just to make sure we don't get a bad name as van lifers.
So that's it. We hope in this video we've given you just a little bit of an insight as to the different options that you've got when you're travelling around Europe. We certainly enjoy the flexibility and we try and mix it up as much as we can.
So that's it from us, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.